Madame, Mademoiselle, Monsieur, bonjour. Soyez les bienvenus à cette deuxième journée du World Power to X Summit. Nous allons évoquer tout au long de cette matinée les perspectives offertes par la production d'hydrogène vert à travers les interventions d'experts. Nous envisagerons les grandes étapes futures dans ce domaine à la lumière notamment des différents projets qui sont en cours. Il sera aussi question de la contribution de l'hydrogène vert dans la transition énergétique et les mutations, notamment dans le secteur de la mobilité. Alors d'après Bloomberg, je disais ça ce matin, il faut savoir que la production d'hydrogène vert risque d'être multipliée par 18 dans les 10 prochaines années. Et cela traduit notamment aujourd'hui l'investissement en dizaines de milliards de dollars par des géants de l'énergie. Une dynamique qui est forcément suivie de très près et avec beaucoup d'intérêt par les États, d'où la présence ce matin de plusieurs ambassadeurs que je salue particulièrement et vous allez les entendre dans un tout petit instant. Avant cela, je vous demande d'accueillir à mes côtés pour animer ce premier panel Monsieur Saïd El-Hadi, PDG de Nareva et président de la commission économie verte de la CGEM. Sous vos applaudissements, mesdames, messieurs.
Merci, Amin Dedda. C'est un honneur et un plaisir pour moi aujourd'hui d'ouvrir ce panel très intéressant et je pense que nous aurons des discussions passionnantes et intéressantes. En ma qualité d'abord de président de la commission économie verte de la CGEM, je remercie leurs excellences les ambassadeurs qui ont bien voulu venir aujourd'hui. Stratégie effective sur la question. Et donc, je demande à Madame Hélène Le Gall, ambassadrice de France, de se joindre au panel. Monsieur Jesper Kammersgaard, ambassadeur de Danemark au Maroc. Monsieur Bernardo Fucher Pereira, ambassadeur du Portugal. Monsieur Sjur Larsen, ambassadeur de Norvège. Monsieur David Green, chargé d'affaires de l'ambassade des États-Unis. Merci, Excellence. C'est un grand honneur de vous recevoir aujourd'hui et je vous remercie encore une fois au nom de l'ensemble des organisateurs de cet événement. Nous avons aussi, comme l'a dit M. Dedda, d'autres représentants de ministères d'État et d'autres ambassades qui viendront en deuxième session aussi intervenir. Si vous me permettez, avant de donner la parole à leurs excellences, peut-être quelques mots introductifs de ma part. Alors, je pense que la discussion d'aujourd'hui, avec plusieurs pays, plusieurs marchés, est extrêmement importante. Comme vous le savez, la filière Power-to-X et donc toute la filière hydrogène en particulier est vouée à jouer un rôle très important à la fois pour la transformation industrielle, mais aussi dans le secteur de l'énergie. Alors, comme vous le savez, nous sommes dans un contexte aujourd'hui très particulier où les stratégies énergétiques des pays sont en général repensées non seulement sous l'angle du changement climatique et des objectifs climatiques que les parties prennent, mais aussi en tenant compte des préoccupations d'approvisionnement, de sécurité d'approvisionnement énergétique que stigmatise aujourd'hui particulièrement le marché de l'hydrogène en Europe. Donc, des stratégies repensées avec certainement donc de nouveaux critères, de nouvelles priorités. Donc, outre l'efficacité énergétique, outre la transformation des combustibles fossiles en combustible, en énergie décarbonée, il y a des questions qui reviennent de manière très importante d'indépendance énergétique, de sécurité énergétique, de la construction de nouveaux partenariats internationaux pour l'énergie. Donc, il serait intéressant, effectivement, d'écouter les avis des uns et des autres à ce sujet-là. Alors, l'hydrogène, je suppose, malheureusement, je n'ai pas été présent parmi vous hier, mais je suppose que les questions ont été largement débattues. Les experts, les évaluations d'experts indiquent que le marché de l'hydrogène serait probablement à une taille de 400 à 600 millions de tonnes à l'horizon 2050. 2050, c'est dans pas très longtemps, compte tenu de toute la transformation à faire. Alors, 400 à 600 millions de tonnes, c'est une valeur, c'est difficile aujourd'hui de parler de valeur, mais par rapport au dollar d'aujourd'hui, on parle de 500 à 1000 milliards de dollars. Donc, c'est extrêmement important comme marché. Pour faire juste le parallèle, alors je prends le marché du pétrole. Alors évidemment, j'enlève 2022 et 2021 et je regarde 2019 comme tout le monde aujourd'hui. En 2019, le marché du pétrole, l'ordre de grandeur était 2000 milliards de dollars. Alors, juste pour montrer comment le marché de l'hydrogène pourrait être significatif à l'avenir. En parallèle à cela, toutes les évaluations qui sont faites montrent que, évidemment, bon, les marchés vont être producteurs pour leurs propres besoins, mais il y aura un commerce international important d'hydrogène. Donc, une étude du World Energy Council a, par exemple, montré que l'Europe importerait 50% de ses besoins en hydrogène à l'horizon 2050. Donc, des flux très importants, des partenariats très importants à construire et donc des questions aussi géopolitiques qui se posent avec l'ensemble des parties prenantes. L'autre question que je vous propose aussi, peut-être sur laquelle réfléchir et discuter, c'est donc, nous avons parlé de nouveaux partenariats. Évidemment, il y aura des nouveaux partenariats, mais des partenariats qui doivent tenir compte des expériences du passé, en termes de qualité de partenariat, en termes de durabilité du partenariat, mais aussi en termes de création de valeur partagée. Donc, la chaîne de l'hydrogène est une chaîne extrêmement importante, complexe, où il y a non seulement donc, le flux de la matière elle-même, de la commodité, mais il y a aussi toute la technologie derrière, tous les équipements, tous les efforts de construction, tous les efforts d'infrastructure qui appellent un partage de valeur, à d'abord une captation de valeur la plus importante possible par les marchés de production et par les marchés de consommation, donc une captation de valeur importante, mais en partenariat entre producteurs et consommateurs. Donc, je pense qu'il y aura des leviers de partenariat extrêmement importants et je suppose que leurs excellences aborderont cette question de manière particulièrement importante. Alors, évidemment, comme vous le savez, Excellences, bon, le Maroc se positionne en tant qu'acteur futur, présent déjà, j'espère, et futur de la filière du Power to X et de la filière de l'hydrogène en particulier. C'est une filière qui est très importante pour notre pays, puisque nous avons les ressources naturelles pour pouvoir être producteurs à des coûts extrêmement compétitifs à l'échelle mondiale. Je pense qu'on peut dire de manière assez sûre que nous aurons les meilleurs coûts de production au monde de l'hydrogène en raison donc de la qualité de nos ressources éoliennes, mais aussi solaires. Et donc le Maroc doit se positionner, il est en train de se positionner à la fois pour son propre système énergétique, pour sa propre industrie qui aussi est en train de se transformer de manière rapide, mais aussi pour l'export, l'Europe en particulier, mais aussi peut-être les États-Unis, peut-être des pays du Moyen-Orient et peut-être aussi pour l'Asie. Voilà donc quelques remarques pour le démarrage des discussions. Et sans plus tarder, je donne la parole à Madame Hélène Le Gall, ambassadrice de France. Excellence.
Bien, d'abord, mesdames et messieurs les ambassadeurs, merci beaucoup d'abord de l'invitation. Je suis très heureuse de prendre part aujourd'hui à ces discussions sur un sujet qui est absolument passionnant et qui avait déjà donné lieu à une première édition de ce sommet il y a 1 an et demi. des échanges déjà très éclairants sur la question de la production d'hydrogène vert, de ses dérivés, un sujet qui se situe au croisement de beaucoup d'enjeux, des enjeux environnementaux, économiques, mais aussi géopolitiques, et qui oblige à penser à long terme. 18 mois après ce premier sommet, le contexte international donne malheureusement une acuité nouvelle à ces sujets. Parce que l'agression russe en Ukraine est venue perturber les marchés mondiaux avec une explosion des prix des énergies fossiles, et elle était venue rappeler également de manière brutale la dimension de la souveraineté qui revêt toujours les questions énergétiques. Elle a enfin amené un certain nombre de pays, dont la France et plus généralement l'Union européenne, à accélérer leurs réflexions sur leurs approvisionnements énergétiques. Un travail avait déjà été engagé avec la préparation du pacte vert, le Green Deal pour l'Europe. Alors, je voudrais faire 3 remarques pour commencer la discussion. La première, c'est évidemment, et je pense que vous en avez déjà beaucoup parlé, c'est que le Maroc est bien placé sur la carte mondiale du marché de l'hydrogène. Il possède de nombreux atouts pour se situer comme l'un des grands acteurs sur la carte mondiale de la production d'hydrogène vert et de ses dérivés. Un formidable potentiel et aussi sa proximité avec l'Europe. Son expérience aussi dans la production d'énergie renouvelable à coût très compétitif. La commission spéciale sur le nouveau modèle de développement avait rappelé dans son rapport l'année dernière qu'une énergie décarbonée au coût réduit était l'un des facteurs centraux de la compétitivité future du Royaume. Et c'est évidemment un élément crucial pour une filière industrielle comme l'hydrogène. Le Maroc a aussi mis en place les institutions nécessaires pour le développement de la filière. La création en 2020 de la Commission nationale pour l'hydrogène. Puis en 2021, le lancement du cluster national de l'hydrogène vert, Green H2 Maroc, dédié à la recherche, à l'innovation et à l'industrie. Et enfin, la feuille de route nationale de l'hydrogène vert qui propose une première estimation des marchés potentiels au niveau national et international, ainsi que des pistes pour l'usage local de cet hydrogène. Les projets se multiplient. La deuxième remarque que je voudrais faire concernant mon pays, c'est que la France s'est dotée d'une stratégie hydrogène qui est l'un des piliers de la décarbonation de notre économie qui est en cours. C'est une stratégie qui date de septembre 2020 et qui s'inscrit dans l'effort de décarbonation de notre économie. Une stratégie dotée de moyens importants avec 7 milliards d'euros qui a été renforcée dans le cadre du plan France 2030, annoncé à l'automne dernier. Elle est centrée sur 3 aspects. Le premier, c'est de décarboner l'industrie en faisant émerger une filière française de l'électrolyse. Le deuxième, c'est de développer une mobilité lourde à l'hydrogène décarboné. Et le troisième, c'est de soutenir la recherche, l'innovation et le développement de compétences afin de favoriser les usages de demain. L'idée, c'est de doter la France d'un écosystème de production d'hydrogène sur notre territoire national. Évidemment, ça n'empêche pas les coopérations internationales mutuellement bénéfiques qui accélèrent l'industrialisation des composants et des procédés et qui permettent des effets d'échelle et une montée en compétences et une accélération de la maîtrise technologique. Plus largement, l'hydrogène vert a également été au cœur des discussions sur le pacte vert de l'Union européenne. Et je profite des derniers jours de la présidence française de l'Union européenne pour saluer le niveau d'ambition des objectifs de ce pacte vert. Ces stratégies, tant européennes que françaises, ne sont pas pensées de manière isolée du reste du monde. Au contraire, elles font l'objet d'un engagement fort avec nos partenaires les plus ambitieux pour agir ensemble en réponse aux défis climatiques. Et c'est à ce titre que nous travaillons dans le cadre de l'Union européenne à l'établissement d'un partenariat vert avec le Royaume du Maroc, qui sera le premier pays à avoir ce cadre de partenariat sur la question du pacte vert de l'Union européenne. Troisième remarque, les entreprises françaises, par leur expertise dans le secteur de l'hydrogène, ont un rôle à jouer au Maroc. Nos entreprises, conscientes du potentiel du Royaume, poursuivent leurs échanges avec les acteurs marocains du secteur de l'hydrogène. Leur intérêt s'illustre bien évidemment par leur forte implication dans le cluster national de l'hydrogène vert, mais aussi à travers les multiples projets auxquels elles participent à tous les stades du processus et à différentes échelles. Et je salue donc la signature qui est intervenue hier d'un protocole d'entente entre le cluster marocain de l'hydrogène et la Task Force hydrogène du MEDEF international, ainsi que France Hydrogène, qui regroupe plus de 400 acteurs de la filière française de l'hydrogène. Cet accord vise à renforcer le dialogue entre les écosystèmes de nos deux pays et à amplifier les coopérations entre les signataires. Il reflète la densité des coopérations au service d'un développement économique sobre en carbone que nous appelons de nos vœux en France comme au Maroc. Je suis donc sûre que nous verrons dans les mois et les années qui viennent de très nombreux projets se développer au Maroc pour votre...
Merci, Excellence. Donc, j'invite Monsieur Jesper Kammersgaard.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank IRASEN, the Mohammed VI Polytechnic University, the Cluster Green H2, and the Ministry of Energy Transition and Sustainable Development, as well as other involved partners for organizing this very important summit. Today, I'm delighted to be amongst so many inspiring and bright-minded people from all over the world, and to be part of this second edition of this summit here in the beautiful city of Marrakesh. Please allow me to start by sharing my dream. Martin Luther King's visionary speech at Lincoln Memorial in 1963 will be remembered for his vision for equality and freedom for all people, and for the now infamous words, "I have a dream." Today, I also have a dream. My dream is to help mitigate climate change. And it is a dream that can become real. But to become real, we need leadership, we need innovation, and we need courage. First and foremost, we need to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. In Denmark, we have adopted a law in Parliament with two key goals. One is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 70% by 2030. The other is to reach carbon neutrality by 2050. In addition to this law, Denmark is committed to a fossil-free energy system by 2050. And Denmark has a very clear plan and path to reach these goals. Denmark is a front runner in the renewable energies field. We excel in the field of wind energy and technology. Denmark has great access to wind energy, and we have the know-how and technology to collect it and use it for clean electricity. At the North Sea Summit in May in the city of Esbjerg, the Danish Prime Minister, together with the German Chancellor, the Belgian Prime Minister, the Dutch Prime Minister, and the President of the European Commission agreed to quadruple the four countries' total offshore wind capacity by 2030 and increase the total offshore wind capacity to at least 150 gigawatt by 2050. This is an enormous step towards reaching climate neutrality. Green hydrogen and e-fuels are another critical component in the future energy system globally. Without them, it will be impossible to achieve full decarbonization. Since 2019, the Danish government has invested more than 400 million euros in the development of the power-to-X sector. The Danish goal is to have at least 4 to 6 gigawatt coming from Power-to-X in 2030 and to create green fuels for planes, for ships, and for trucks, both in Denmark and abroad, and to engage in international partnerships with industry and agriculture. To achieve the Danish electrolysis capacity goal, it requires up to 7 gigawatt offshore wind capacity, and several actions are made towards reaching this goal. In 2021, a government Power-to-X partnership with Danish companies was created to kickstart the PTX industry in Denmark. 24 front-runner companies are part of this important partnership. They together cover the whole value chain with their different expertise. The Danish delegation participating in this summit are all members of this partnership and have ongoing projects. I would like to highlight a few of those. Copenhagen Infrastructure Partners is the largest investment fund in the field of renewable energy. Copenhagen Infrastructure Partners have invested in the city of Esbjerg in Denmark to produce green ammonia for use in fertilizers and in fuels, contributing to the long-term sustainability of agriculture and shipping. The production at this plant will make Denmark self-sufficient with ammonia for fertilizer production. The plant is anticipated to be ready for operation at the end of 2026. Another Danish frontrunner company in the Power-to-X field is Topsøe, who is also part of this conference. Topsøe has the leading innovative technology to decarbonize the industry, and they seek to rapidly accelerate the adoption of green solutions, in particular within Power-to-X. Topsøe works in several sectors, such as transport, chemicals, steel, and cement, and holds a mission to reduce society's emissions by 12 million tons of CO2 already this year. One of Topsøe's latest projects is the construction of a new large-scale electrolyzer plant in my city of birth, Herning. Construction of the plant is scheduled to begin before the end of this year, and the plant will be operational by 2024. It will have an annual capacity of 500 megawatt, but with a scalability of up to 5 gigawatt, and will be the first industrial scale plant of its kind. This is also an enormous step towards developing a strong Power-to-X industry in Europe and decarbonizing the industrial sector. A specific sector where Power-to-X is a crucial game changer is the shipping industry. 9% of the world's greenhouse gas emissions globally comes from transporting goods around the world. And the shipping industry, as well as the industries in general, will need green hydrogen to become sustainable. I would like to specifically elaborate on the maritime shipping industry, as this is a field where Danish visions are also offering concrete solutions to the challenges at hand. The maritime shipping industry currently emits 940 million tons of CO2 per year. That's 2.5% of the world's greenhouse gas emissions. Danish A.P. Møller Mærsk has always been a true pioneer in the maritime shipping field and holds 20% of the global shipping industry. Maersk is facing the challenges presented by climate change with an admirable attitude and a concrete strategy. Maersk has long been focusing on reducing CO2 emissions from their fleet and had already reduced their emissions by 40% per container moved between 2008 and 2018. That was done by building bigger and more efficient vessels and by slow steaming. Maersk now has a vision of having zero carbon emissions coming from their ships by 2050. To achieve this, Maersk has been investing greatly in Power-to-X since 2018, where the A.P. Møller Foundation donated just about 54 million euros to create a global center for zero carbon shipping in Copenhagen to investigate the possibilities of converting green electricity into green fuel by electrolysis. To have zero carbon emissions coming from one of the world's biggest and busiest actors in the shipping industry already by 2050 might sound almost impossible, and one could easily think that this is another admirable dream that will be very difficult to turn into reality. But in fact, it is possible. Maersk recently ordered their first CO2 neutral vessels, which is to be delivered next year. This will be the world's first carbon neutral liner vessel fueled by renewable methanol. Maersk is thereby the first major shipping company to take the green plunge by opting for methanol and green fuels. To transform the company as efficiently and as quickly as possible, Maersk plans to replace all their existing vessels, but plans not to replace all their existing vessels, but to retrofit them by adding a combustion engine designed for green fuels. Thereby, Maersk will be able to achieve zero carbon shipping much earlier than otherwise. I believe that the demand for green fuels will be higher than the supply in the coming 10 years. With current technology, Power-to-X technology and green fuels tend to be more expensive than fossil fuels. But by investing in the field, it can be the better deal in the future. We need to upscale the investment in the Power-to-X field and to pursue our dreams of becoming carbon neutral as soon as possible. I believe that Power-to-X can be a solution to making many of our biggest and most important industries, such as agri-food and the shipping industry, carbon neutral and sustainable. We just need to have the courage to follow our dreams and changing our world to the better, like many of history's great men and women have done before us. We are all facing great challenges caused by climate change, and it is imperative that we take action on our dreams in collaboration across borders. The people and companies attending here at the summit today and in the coming days are important international actors who take responsibility for a sustainable future with clean energy for the generations to come. I'm looking very much forward to following the many fruitful discussions and sharing of knowledge in the days to come. Thank you so much for your attention, and I wish you all a great summit.
Thank you, Ambassador Kammersgaard. Donc, j'invite Monsieur Bernardo Fuccio Pereira, ambassadeur du Portugal, à se joindre au pupitre.
Bonjour, je voudrais tout d'abord remercier les organisateurs, tout en particulier IRESEN, pour cette opportunité de pouvoir vous présenter la situation au Portugal en ce qui concerne les énergies renouvelables et l'hydrogène. C'est une grande fierté pour moi d'être ici et de représenter le gouvernement portugais dans cette impressionnante conférence. Si vous me permettez, je vais le faire en anglais. Thanks to heavy investments made in solar, wind, and hydraulic energy in recent decades, I can say that the energy transition in Portugal is well underway. Already last year, renewables were responsible for 59% of the electricity consumed in Portugal. Portugal is also the first country in the world to commit to carbon neutrality by 2050. We are determined to play a leading role in the worldwide energy transition, taking advantage of our excellent natural conditions to produce renewable energy. And we believe that Morocco can be a key partner in this endeavor, building on the excellent across-the-board cooperation that we already have on the energy field. Now, with regards to hydrogen, we are convinced that Portugal will be a key player in the production and use of ammonia and green hydrogen, and in the creation of an international green hydrogen market. We have the right natural resources, we have a strategic location, and we are developing the proper technologies. Our hydrogen hub is in the Sines deep water port, midway between Lisbon and the Algarve. There, we are creating a hydrogen valley, taking advantage of the large industrial facilities and gas infrastructure already available, including pipelines and storage facilities. Let me emphasize, this is not what we are planning to do. This is what we are already doing. We have a robust regulatory framework that gives investors predictability on how to address, measure, and mitigate policy and country risks. We have developed a stable support and incentive mechanisms to allow volume and price risk mitigation, as well as to subsidize economic affordability in the initial stages of implementation. We have the necessary human skills and the technological know-how. We have plenty of sun, wind, and water, and Sines benefits from a hinterland with lots of space to locate solar and wind farms. And with the help of the Repower Europe program, we have access to the necessary financial means. In fact, I could say that Portugal was at the forefront of the push now underway in Europe to invest in the green hydrogen economy. We were first movers, and we want to be front runners on green hydrogen and green ammonia. This is our path, and there is no looking back. Of course, our companies will use the know-how they have developed to invest in other countries, thus helping them to achieve their own energy transition. Here in Morocco, one Portuguese company, Fusion Fuel, with its own innovative technology for green hydrogen production, is already developing a very large project in the Agadir region in partnership with the Consolidated Contractors Group. It's called the Hivo Ammonia Agadir, an investment close to €1 billion. And I know that other important Portuguese companies are also looking at investment opportunities here in Morocco. Our ambition is to be a leading provider of renewable energy to the industrial heart of Europe and to connect our energy network to Africa, which of course means going through Morocco, our second neighbor. For that, we need infrastructure. So we remain committed to the building of an electrical interconnection with Morocco. We also follow with great interest the project to build the Nigeria-Morocco gas pipeline. On the short term, we are looking to build a third gas and hydrogen pipeline to Spain and to connect it with Western Europe. So, ladies and gentlemen, I believe that the triangle composed of Morocco, Spain, and Portugal can become a very important energy exporting region in the next decades. Of course, there will be competition among us for resources and investment. But I think we also have a lot to gain by working together, by pooling our resources in order to build scale and industrial heft. And this is what we hope to do in the next few years. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. I invite Mr. Sjur Larsen. The floor is yours.
Ladies and gentlemen, Excellencies, colleagues, it's a pleasure for me to be among you today. I was here yesterday and I have already learned a lot, and I think that's the sign of a successful conference. Like my colleagues, I would like to start by thanking the organizers for this extremely interesting conference that comes at a very timely moment. It's timely because we are hopefully coming out of a pandemic, and because the international situation is such that every question related to energy is at the top of agendas in all European countries. I come from a country that is known for its immense reserves and resources when it comes to oil and gas, fossil fuels, but it's also a country where more than 95% of the electricity consumed domestically comes only from renewables. We have a lot of hydropower, for which we are very, very proud. And although I represent a country that gains a lot of money from fossil fuels, it's also a country that has strong ambitions. We want to become a low-emission society by 2050. My government has adopted a target for greenhouse gas emissions to reduce between 90 and 95% compared to 1990 levels when we come to 2050. And Norway considers hydrogen to have the potential to become a very important energy carrier to reduce emissions. We see possibilities in many of the sectors already mentioned by my colleagues, transportation in particular, and also maritime transportation is especially underlined. I find it very interesting to hear experts yesterday diverging a little bit in the views of the possibilities for maritime transport, and then hearing my good friend and Danish colleague underlining how Maersk is already doing this. Other areas of great interest is other parts of the transportation sector and also industry, as has been discussed yesterday. My country, as many other European countries, has also adopted its own hydrogen strategy. And as many other countries, we focus on establishing pilot projects and to give support to R&D projects. We have also our own center for research into hydrogen and hydrogen possibilities. In addition to the government policy, we are convinced that Norwegian companies can be forerunners in the shift to green hydrogen. We believe that they have the established competence, both in hydrogen technology, in renewable power generation, and also the possibility to build on our vast experience from large industrial projects, mainly from the North Sea. I would like to share with you today one concrete example, and that is the company Scatec. Scatec is a leading Norwegian renewable energy solutions provider, and it was one of the companies that were very early to develop a Power-to-X strategy and to implement several initiatives in the MENA region. This company is today on track to be one of the first to deliver, not only plan, but actually deliver large-scale green hydrogen and green ammonia. In Egypt, Scatec has entered this year into an agreement with Fertiglobe, a leading ammonia producer, to jointly develop a 100-megawatt green hydrogen facility for green ammonia production. In Oman, Scatec has established a joint venture with Acme, an Italian clean tech company, to design, develop, build, own, and operate a large-scale ammonia facility. The first phase of the facility is expected to produce 100,000 tons of ammonia annually. And I think it's important to note that this project is the first to obtain green hydrogen and green ammonia certification by TÜV, as many of you know, a global leader in independent technical services. So, thanks to its integrated business model and extensive expertise in developing and structuring PTX projects, Scatec could be an ideal partner also for large-scale projects in Morocco. And for those interested in more details, Scatec do have their own representatives present here, and I'm sure you will find them good people to talk to and to talk with. In my opinion, we will in the future, in the very near future, see more of these innovative green transactions. They will be based on renewable technology, but also on long-term offtake contracts and equity co-investments, project financing from multilateral financial institutions with an access to the international debt capital markets. We really believe that these projects will be successful commercially, and they will be welcomed by governments as they support countries' ambitions to become green hubs. You have heard my colleagues speak this morning about the various strategies, their companies, and their ambitions. I think that you will have already gathered the pictures that European countries are already unveiling from the political level, and that there are European companies that have expertise, and I'm very much interested in cooperation projects. One of the questions asked to this panel was about the timeline. In my opinion, the time is now, and we are about to move from the nice slides with predictions of profits and large-scale projects, and hopefully by the next PTX, we will see actual pictures of many of these projects having been started and possibly, depending on when the next PTX will be, already in operation. A wise man said it's difficult to make predictions, especially about the future. And after 2 days here, that is also my sentiment. This is a sector with enormous potential, a lot of political will, many interested companies, but also still with quite a lot of risk. It will be extremely interesting to follow the development of the sector as we go forward. And I hope you will keep Norway and Norwegian companies in mind when considering your future in the hydrogen business. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Ambassador Larsani. Mr. David Green, the floor is yours.
Good morning, and thank you, as all of my colleagues, thank you to the organizers for this opportunity to speak with you. Thank you, Saeed, for the introduction, and it's an honor to be with such a distinguished group of colleagues to talk about where we're going in terms of green energy and green hydrogen. What more appropriate place than Marrakesh, in light of the fact that Morocco hosted COP22 just a few years ago as a critical step towards the decarbonization of our globe and specifically of energy. What I can say, speaking for the United States, is of course building our clean energy future is one of President Biden's top priorities. This administration is aiming to put America on track towards cutting carbon emissions in half by the end of this decade, reaching 100% clean electricity by 2035, and then achieving net zero emissions by 2050. Many countries around the world, obviously, including Morocco and countries represented by my colleagues here, have made similar commitments for the future of our planet. And as many of the previous speakers indicated, progress is well underway. To achieve these ambitious goals, of course, we need to take bold action together as a global community to innovate, to incentivize the private sector, global markets, and societies to create new power-to-X paradigms and to adopt different forms of energy usage across the spectrum, from powering our homes, to industry, to transportation, to the very processes that provide us clean drinking water or abundant and safe food to eat. The United States, under President Biden, is investing in innovation, pushing creative policies for consumers and industry, and working with many countries across the world to develop the best solutions to mitigate and adapt to climate change. And there is enormous economic benefit for the globe in developing the clean technologies that will power our net zero transition. Hydrogen alone, as we've heard, could be a multi-trillion-dollar global market in the coming decades. Within the United States, a coalition of major industries teamed together to develop a roadmap on the potential for a widespread green hydrogen market. That roadmap concluded that by 2050, the US hydrogen economy could lead to an estimated $750 billion per year in revenue and a cumulative 3.4 million jobs. If we consider the market potential for the entire globe, the numbers are truly awe-inspiring. Of course, investing in these energy alternatives and fuels, as well as the products and infrastructure to use those fuels, will take time and a lot of capital, but we are getting closer. When I was first arrived in Morocco in 2019, one of the first events that I attended was something also sponsored by IRESEN, which was the Solar Africa decathlon, which took place here in Ben Guerir in partnership with UM6P. And that year we were celebrating the 50th anniversary of the US, of the moon landing, which happened in 1969. And that idea of the moon landing, the idea of a moonshot, has come to symbolize striving for goals that might seem unachievable, but with the adaptation of new technologies, with sufficient resources, with sufficient transformative investment, that you could achieve something that heretofore seemed impossible. And so in our lingo, moonshot represents a grand ambition, but one that you truly think you can achieve. So last June, the US Department of Energy, and you will hear from an expert later on at this conference, launched what we're calling a hydrogen moonshot, committed to lowering the cost of hydrogen to $1 per kilogram in 1 decade. And then last November, to advance our domestic goals and add to the global collective action for new energy markets, President Biden signed the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law into effect. That law provides $9.5 billion to create clean hydrogen ecosystems in the United States. It includes $1 billion for electrolysis research, development, and demonstration, $500 million for clean hydrogen technology manufacturing and recycling research and development, and $8 billion for the establishment of 4 or more regional clean hydrogen hubs across the United States. So we're putting our money where our mouth is in terms of the transition and in terms of green hydrogen. As we know, hydrogen is a very versatile fuel that offers a path to sustainable long-term economic growth. But realizing the true potential for hydrogen requires a global commitment to continued research and development, as well as ramping up demonstrations and deployments with the private sector to achieve scale. I am certainly not an energy expert. I'm not even an economist, but I know that if countries work together to not only research and innovate, but also incentivize and invest in these new energy markets. It will build economies and advance our societies while fighting our changing climate. Morocco, with its abundant renewable energy potential and world-class ingenuity, is at the forefront of what countries can do to build those new markets. And we in the United States are proud to be growing our partnership with Morocco on this front. A few examples of what we're doing. Our Department of Energy is working with our hosts here today, IRISN, on green hydrogen projects. The U.S. National Renewable Energy Laboratory has been working with the National Office for Energy and Water for several years on integration of renewable energy into the grid. We're partnering with Morocco's National Electricity Regulator on building regulatory systems. Our U.S. Trade and Development Agency has several new market feasibility studies that we're funding to look at clean fuels, green ammonia, and smart grids. The U.S. Department of Treasury's Structured Finance team is offering assistance to the Moroccan government to work together on financing mechanisms for complex energy projects. And finally, the U.S. Development Finance Corporation, with its $60 billion in annual capitalization, is prioritizing renewable energy and climate action-focused projects across the world, including here in Morocco. And of course, beyond the government-to-government partnerships, we're hearing from more and more U.S. companies that are interested in getting into the sector of green hydrogen and green ammonia markets. And with good reason. The potential here in Morocco for domestic use and export of clean fuels is outstanding. The collective commitments and actions of the United States, Morocco, the countries represented on this panel today, and many other countries around the globe to decarbonize and move our economies to green forms of energy are ambitious, and they're also daunting. But we believe that with smart investments, incentives, and the power of our people and our private sectors, we can achieve them. Thank you again for inviting me to join you to share a few thoughts. I'm excited to see what we're all able to accomplish in this critical decade for climate action. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Et merci à tous les intervenants pour ces remarques, observations et commentaires très intéressants. Je vais m'aventurer très rapidement à faire une synthèse, pas exhaustive, mais quelques points saillants intéressants qui sont ressortis effectivement dans toutes les interventions. Bon, on note dans le cadre de la France qu'effectivement la France est un acteur très engagé dans le cadre du Green Deal européen et de l'objectif de décarbonation totale à l'horizon 2050. Très engagé également dans la filière hydrogène puisqu'un écosystème a été mis en place en France avec une task force qui a signé d'ailleurs un accord hier avec le cluster hydrogène du Maroc. Donc, on a un engagement très, très fort de la France dans ce domaine. On note également que le Danemark ambitionne d'être également leader dans la filière d'hydrogène après avoir été leader dans la filière éolienne avec ses entreprises, avec la politique, la stratégie générale de l'État danois et donc avec des entreprises et des fonds d'investissement qui aujourd'hui sortent le plus grand projet à échelle industrielle réelle avec 4 gigawatts qui se met en place. Et enfin, il est intéressant de noter que donc avec les entreprises de transport maritime leaders que vous avez au Danemark, des expériences pilotes et qui deviennent aussi des expériences industrielles avec des bateaux réels qui sortent aujourd'hui très rapidement sur le marché, qui deviennent opérationnels très rapidement avec des combustibles verts. Donc, c'est très intéressant de noter cela. Nous notons que Portugal aussi est donc le premier pays au monde, effectivement, à avoir été à s'être engagé sur la neutralité carbone 2050. Très intéressant à noter. Que également donc une stratégie hydrogène forte avec un hub hydrogène autour du port de Sines, la région de Sines, qu'au Maroc on connaît très bien effectivement, que donc le Portugal traite la question d'infrastructure avec une grande priorité sur la filière hydrogène. Il a rappelé, donc Monsieur l'ambassadeur a rappelé qu'avec le Maroc, donc il y a une interconnexion électrique qui se met en place, un projet important, mais qui peut aussi appeler à d'autres idées au niveau de la filière hydrogène. Il a rappelé aussi que donc l'Espagne, le Portugal et le Maroc sont potentiellement des grands producteurs, donc peut-être un peu de compétition, mais aussi beaucoup de coopération. Ça me rappelle aussi un autre secteur, c'est le secteur portuaire que je connais bien, où on parlait avec nos amis espagnols et portugais de compétition. Coopération et compétition. Alors, Son Excellence, M. Larsen de Norvège, nous rappelle que la Norvège était un leader, et toujours un leader dans le secteur de oil and gas, mais je pense que la Norvège aussi peut être en fait l'exemple global le plus marquant de la transition énergétique. Notre leader oil and gas qui devient aussi leader en hydrogène. Et donc, on voit qu'il y a une concentration très forte de l'État norvégien pour la stratégie hydrogène avec plusieurs projets pilotes, avec un effort R&D très important qui est donné et des entreprises norvégiennes qui commencent à se positionner non seulement en Norvège, mais aussi à travers le monde sur des projets de la filière Power to X. Et enfin, il est intéressant de noter que pour M. l'ambassadeur, donc le calendrier, c'est maintenant, ce n'est pas le futur, c'est le présent déjà. Effectivement, il faut le rappeler. Très intéressant aussi d'écouter M. David Green à travers donc, la stratégie US dans ce domaine. Et donc, il nous rappelle qu'il n'y a pas que l'Europe qui s'est engagée sur la neutralité carbone 2050. Les États-Unis d'Amérique aussi sont sur cette trajectoire avec l'administration Biden extrêmement engagée, qui a mis toute la stratégie d'énergie propre parmi ses grandes priorités, avec des investissements extrêmement lourds et des nouveaux modèles qui sont en train de se positionner. Il est impressionnant de noter que la feuille de route américaine prévoit donc un marché de taille gigantesque, 750 milliards de dollars, dans des alternatives aux énergies fossiles. Et très intéressant de noter que les États-Unis d'Amérique s'engagent dans une voie sur une décade de porter donc le coût de production d'hydrogène à $1 par kilogramme. Extrêmement intéressant à noter, donc ça laisse à réfléchir, effectivement. Voilà. Et donc, M. Green rappelle qu'avec le Maroc, donc il y a déjà plusieurs coopérations qui sont en cours en faisabilité de projets hydrogène, en assistance pour la régulation de réseaux, etc. Et ils sont engagés pour donc le potentiel du Maroc en matière d'hydrogène. Donc, merci beaucoup, Excellence, pour cette très intéressante discussion avec vous. Et je donne la parole à M. Amin Dada pour la suite.
Merci beaucoup, Si Saïd.
Merci d'applaudir leurs excellences.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'll let you go back to your places in the crowd. Thank you very much. Just one moment for the picture. Et on va poursuivre sur cette lancée, à continuer à explorer effectivement les approches au niveau étatique sur le plan stratégique du développement de l'hydrogène vert. Pendant que nos chers panélistes prennent la pause et regagnent leur place, please welcome on stage with me Mrs. Anne Stroubant, Deputy Chief of Staff, Federal Minister of Energy of the Kingdom of Belgium. Welcome. Mr. Oussama Alaoui,
power to hydrogen or PTH to have many uses. So first of all, blended with natural gas to heat homes and industry and for cooking, through fuel cells as to power electric cars, trucks, buses, and trains, as a form of energy storage as well, and generation, and of course, in its most current use as a chemical feedstock for ammonia and other fuels and products. As to when we will start to see the reality of PTH market, this is, I'm sure, as you agree, is largely dependent on bringing down the cost of hydrogen production, including renewable electricity and electrolyzer technology costs to make it economically competitive with traditional alternatives. So this will stimulate industry scale-up and substantial market growth. So hydrogen's cost competitiveness can only be realized with sufficient policy support and investment to accelerate its scale-up. We recognize some progress has been made. Governments are increasingly including hydrogen in their energy mix strategies, and investment in numerous new projects have been announced. But bringing hydrogen technologies to parity with other alternatives will require further action. To enable growth of PTH markets, we have set an economic stretch goal for clean hydrogen at under $2 per kilogram, the point at which it becomes competitive with current fossil fuel energy sources. We're also focusing on ultra low cost solar, aiming for $15 per megawatt hour. Reaching these goals will be integral to unlocking a robust market for the global PTH industry. So the Australian government is investing in excess of $1.2 billion to accelerate industry growth. Central to this is a 464 million investment to develop up to 7 clean hydrogen industrial hubs in regional Australia. An efficient early stage approach to increasing industry scale and demand, both of which are crucial to underpinning a PTH market. We're also supporting on-the-ground projects with $100 million investment to support 310 megawatts hydrogen electrolyzer projects through ARENA, which is the Australian National Renewable Energy Agency. These projects are amongst the largest ones under construction today. So with more than 70 projects in the pipeline and more announced every day, we're well on track to achieve the vision. Australia is ready and poised to foster and service the demand of what is believed to be a robust global PTH industry. But even with the right enabling investments and policy supports, the choices made at critical inflection points along the hydrogen industry's development will serve to either nurture or suppress its growth. In fact, there are 5 levers for stakeholders that can lead to major step changes in creating a market. Number 1 is reducing demand uncertainty. 2, scaling applications with the highest cost improvements per dollar invested. Then deploying complementarity solutions to spark virtuous cycles. Designing distribution networks to maximize utilization, and finally, scaling up production to drive down supply costs. So what can governments do to help? Governments need to support the above mentioned investment and deployment across the board with policies that begin to level the playing field for low carbon and conventional technologies. These may include all or some of the following. First of all, national strategies. So governments have a role to play in setting national targets. These roadmaps provide strong objectives for critical stakeholders to converge around. Example is Australia's National Hydrogen Strategy, and Morocco also has developed recently their own national strategies around hydrogen. Coordination, governments are well positioned as a neutral conveners of industry stakeholders around potential local investment opportunities. This cost perspective provides some early indications of potentially important supply chain investments. So governments can play a role to convene investors around such opportunities. Then you have regulation. Governments can help move or remove barriers that may exist to invest in hydrogen economy today. For instance, by facilitating the process to obtain permits for new refueling stations. Then you have, of course, standardization, where governments can also support industry to coordinate national and international standards. And finally, infrastructure, where governments can decide to support investments in deployment of new infrastructure, such as refueling networks and reuse, where relevant of existing natural gas grids. And I would like to conclude just by making a few remarks about how Australia is collaborating or is present in Morocco around renewables and hydrogen and the interest in hydrogen in particular. First of all, it's worth noting that Australian company Worley Group is a 50% shareholder with OCP Group in GESA, which is one of the largest consulting and engineering firms in Morocco, and also a leader on the African continent, and also with developing projects around hydrogen and green ammonia with OCP. Second of all, we have initiated early stage conversations between IRSN and the CSIRO, which is the Commonwealth Science and Industrial Research Organization in Australia, also to work around green hydrogen. And finally, we have few Australian groups, some important groups looking into Morocco for concrete investments to invest in producing green hydrogen, probably to supply the European continent from here. So I would be more than happy to talk with you after this session, and thank you again very much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much. Merci, Monsieur Oussama Alaoui. Je vais appeler maintenant Mr. Luke Schillings, please. Monsieur Alaoui, vous mettiez l'accent à juste titre, effectivement, sur l'enjeu et le défi de la compétitivité du prix de l'énergie à travers l'hydrogène vert et de la nécessité de soutenir cette industrie à travers notamment des politiques publiques nationales et des accompagnements en termes d'investissement. Monsieur Luke Schillings, c'est à vous.
Bonjour, Monsieur Saïd El-Hadi, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. I join other speakers in thanking the organizer of this really important conference, the Ministry of Energy Transition, IRSN, UMSB, and Green Hydrogen Cluster in wishing you really a very good morning. Our government has agreed on tough targets in its national climate agreement, which includes an ambitious target for hydrogen, like the other speakers before me have set for their countries. To combat climate change, the Dutch government wants to reduce the Netherlands' greenhouse gas emissions by 49% in 2030 compared to 1990 levels, and a 95% reductions by 2050. A steep reduction of CO2 emissions is also required by the European Commission in its Fit for 55 program, 55% less CO2 in 2030. Green hydrogen will play a big part in reaching this goal. The challenge for our country is to become a hub for green hydrogen and related fuels and feedstock. Hydrogen is nothing new in the Netherlands. The Netherlands is second biggest European consumer of gray, albeit hydrogen, because of the use of hydrogen as feedstock for the chemical, petrochemical, and also steel industry. The current use is 1.5 megaton or 180 petajoule a year. 1/3 is used to produce fertilizers. 50% of the current production should be green in 2030. So this is a challenge. For example, green hydrogen is essential for the future of steel industry. The Netherlands Steelworks, Tata Steel, has committed itself to switch to hydrogen and be totally carbon-free 2050. Green hydrogen will also be necessary as backup to produce electricity when solar and wind energy production is not sufficient. The Hystad project of the Gasunie is currently developing a demonstration project in the north of Holland to store hydrogen safely in huge salt caverns that have been used to store natural gas in the past. I was happy to hear that Morocco is also engaged in this path with a project near Mohammedia. Finally, green hydrogen will also have an important role in achieving the climate goals in other sectors, especially zero emission transport, for example, for long-haul transport and inland shipping. The Netherlands also sees a role for hydrogen for residential heating, where electric heating and heat pumps cannot easily be applied. For example, in the historic city of Amsterdam with nearly a whole city built in the 17th century. To enable large-scale production of carbon-neutral hydrogen, the Dutch ambition is to have installed 500 megawatt by 2025 and 3.4 gigawatt electrolyzer capacity by 2030, 10% of the EU target for that year. This will be possible by further developing offshore wind. The planned capacity in Dutch part of the North Sea is in 2030 is 21 gigawatt. Now it's 11 gigawatt. This could further be scaled up to 40 to 75 gigawatts. Already large-scale projects have been developed, such as Posthyden, the world's first offshore electrolyzers platform, which is making use of an existing oil and gas platform, and also Hygro, that has developed a 4 megawatt wind turbine with integrated electrolyzer, thus combining power, hydrogen, and storage and pipeline technology. The ETHO pilot project in Rotterdam uses electricity from a waste processing plant for 5 megawatt electrolyzers. This is, of course, a solution that might also be interesting for a country like Morocco. The demand for green hydrogen is, however, expected to rise exponentially, and it will be necessary to replace fossil fuels such as coal, gas, and petrol, which still account for 88% of the energy in the country of Netherlands. Morocco has a much better rate with 66%. Our own production of hydrogen will never be enough, nor will this be the case for neighboring countries. Thus, hydrogen will have to be imported of countries with high potential to produce renewable energy, such as countries like Oman, which was cited before, Brazil, Canada, Portugal, South Africa, but also Morocco, of course. With its ports and extensive grid of gas pipes connecting the 5 main industrial clusters in the Netherlands, and which could easily be converted in national hydrogen backbone in 2030, the Netherlands can become the hydrogen hub for Northern Europe, joining our Belgian colleagues who also have this ambition. The Netherlands has committed itself to an ambitious policy agenda and taking the essential steps needed to realize the infrastructure and other framework conditions, such as organizing a legal framework for proper hydrogen market with net regulation, certification, and safety standards. Early May, the Dutch government invited a high-level Moroccan delegation of public and private partners to the World Hydrogen Summit in Rotterdam, as you heard from our minister yesterday. The delegation connected with public and private partners, such as the relevant ministries, Shell, Proton Ventures, which is also here today, represented here today, the Port of Rotterdam, represented as well, Vopak, the storage company, Solarforce, and trade organization FME. And I welcome the participation also, of course, of the partners to this conference. We're currently working with our Moroccan counterparts, the Ministry of Energy Transition, IRSN and MASEN, on a consistent multi-annual follow-up plan in the hydrogen sector with a focus of business to business, as well as knowledge to knowledge. We all want to be partners in this exciting journey. So let's do it. We have now an agenda set, and I hope that we will all be partners in really reaching this goal. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Merci, Monsieur Luc Schillings. Merci effectivement l'importance de la coopération et on va en parler tout de suite avant d'écouter Monsieur Tom Hill et Monsieur José Manuel Duran Cuevas. Je vous propose, Monsieur Tom Hill, une petite seconde. On va faire un petit intermède puisque vous parliez de coopération et on sait à quel point c'est important dans le développement de l'hydrogène vert. Une convention va être signée tout de suite sous vos yeux. Elle unit le Royaume du Maroc au Sultanat d'Oman et ça va être signé ici à Marrakech par le docteur Samir Rachidi, que j'invite sur scène à la table de la signature, directeur général de l'IRESEN. Et à distance, nous allons retrouver, voilà, ils sont installés, vous les voyez, nous allons retrouver le docteur Sausen El Riyami. Elle est Director of Oman Hydrogen Center, donc la directrice du Centre omanais d'hydrogène, qui va donc signer à distance, comme quoi la distance n'est pas un obstacle quand il s'agit de développer la coopération dans le domaine de l'hydrogène. Voilà, signature de cette convention entre l'IRESEN et le Centre d'hydrogène du Sultanat d'Oman pour initier une collaboration de recherche appliquée et de formation sur la chaîne de valeur de l'hydrogène. Voilà pour la signature par le docteur Samir Rachidi et par docteur Sausen El Riyami. Merci beaucoup, bravo, voilà, c'est fait de part et d'autre. Encore une fois, malgré la distance, cette convention qui va effectivement permettre de renforcer la collaboration dans la recherche appliquée et la formation sur la chaîne de valeur de l'hydrogène. Merci, madame. Thank you, Dr. Sausen Riyami, et merci, monsieur Samir Rachidi. On poursuit donc, et monsieur Tom Hill, c'est à vous. Je rappelle que vous êtes Trade Policy and Market Access Lead at British Embassy to Morocco. On vous écoute.
Good morning. It's an honor to be here. So today I'd like to discuss three things. First of all, to reflect on the UK presidency of COP26 and its relevance in this context. I'd like to update on the UK hydrogen strategy and then finally cover UK-Moroccan cooperation in hydrogen and energy transition and the potential that we see here moving forward. So as you know, in November last year, the UK hosted COP26 in Glasgow in partnership with Italy. Now, whilst geopolitical events may have replaced climate on the front pages of the current world news, I think the current crisis increases rather than diminishes the importance of the climate agenda. And at COP26, 197 parties agreed the Glasgow Climate Pact. And this saw countries agree to accelerate action around the 1.5 degree target. It saw countries strengthen international cooperation on adaptation, damage and loss, agreeing to support the most vulnerable communities to the impacts of climate change. And it endorsed the first ever inclusion of a call to phase down coal and phase out inefficient fossil fuel subsidies. It urged developed countries to at least double the finance they provide to support developing countries as they adapt to the impacts of climate change. And on that, the UK has doubled its climate finance commitment to 11.6 billion from 2021 to 2026. And importantly, it also recognises the role green hydrogen can play in enhancing access to affordable and clean energy and opening opportunities to the new export revenues between these countries. So the 1.5 target was kept alive, but it was a fragile win and only achievable by continued ambition and breakthroughs in technology to make that ambition attainable. It's been great to see that ambition taken up at this conference. And thank you to IRISEN, Mohammed VI University, Ministry of Energy and Power Development, and Cluster Green H2 for your leadership here. Regarding COP, attention will turn later this year to Sharm el-Sheikh as we continue to ratchet up these commitments, and I'm sure we'll be seeing many of you there. Okay, so on to hydrogen. So the UK's 2050 net zero target will undoubtedly require large-scale hydrogen use. There's no doubt about that. And that's why the UK, as part of its recent energy security strategy, is doubling its ambition up to 10 gigawatts of low-carbon hydrogen production capacity by 2030. This will help our vital industrial sectors to transition away from oil and gas, will provide greener energy for use in the transport and power sectors, and provide low-carbon heating. We're already seeing this in hydrogen blending that you're seeing in some residential properties in the UK. Analysts by our Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy suggest we could need up to 20 gigawatts of hydrogen production capacity by 2035 for domestic consumption. And the government's hydrogen business model, currently under development, will incentivize both production and use of low-carbon hydrogen through the provision of ongoing revenue support, making hydrogen an attractive decarbonisation option across sectors. So the UK government's providing significant support for research, development and demonstration of hydrogen use across the UK. We've already set out £1 billion worth of government funding for hydrogen and other low carbon technologies across the value chain. Finally, on UK's hydrogen strategy, the UK low carbon hydrogen standard will provide a clear definition of low carbon hydrogen, ensuring that only hydrogen production that delivers the required emission reductions is supported by government. We'll shortly be publishing this. Now, of course, no country can make this transition alone. Global challenges requires a global solution, and we are excited to partner with countries like Morocco in how we address this. As low carbon hydrogen technologies remain at a relatively early stage, international collaboration and coordination is vital that we effectively unlock this potential. How will we do this? Well, we already have international partnerships, and the UK is a member of the MI Clean Hydrogen Mission, Hydrogen Breakthrough, and regional collaboration will be vital. And Morocco, with its significant generating potential and its proximity to the UK and many other energy-hungry markets, has a huge role to play in this conversation. So, to conclude, how is the UK collaborating with Morocco on hydrogen and the energy transition? Well, many of you here today played a key role in the formation of the COP26 Energy Transition Council, which has gone a long way to coordinate collective efforts on Morocco's energy transition. Now, the ETC has been extended until 2025 with substantial resources to support Morocco and other member countries. This includes a working group on green hydrogen, which will be a key platform to develop regulatory frameworks as the technology evolves. I hope that as part of this, we can continue to share expertise, research, standards and policy. As you will likely also know, there are a number of private sector projects that will further link Morocco and the UK's energy transitions. I won't talk about these now, but of course we continue to support these and encourage further investment. We've talked at the conference about the role of finance. There's an interesting discussion yesterday on that, and the UK has a significant offer here. UK's export finance offer and risk appetite is £4 billion in Morocco, and this is targeted to support clean growth and other large infrastructure projects. So to conclude, whilst the COP process is imperfect and often unwieldy, it can work and has set out a common ambition. Meeting that ambition will require huge technological change, but I believe that that change is visible at this conference and in Morocco, and we look forward to working with you on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thomhill. Merci beaucoup. Je vais céder la parole à Monsieur José Manuel Durán Cuevas. Monsieur Thomhill, effectivement, la stratégie du Royaume-Uni dans ce domaine et la place importante de la coopération entre le Royaume du Maroc et le Royaume-Uni. Monsieur Manuel Durán Cuevas, c'est à vous.
Ok, merci. Salam alaikum, sabah al-khair. Bonjour tout le monde, buenos días. C'est pour moi un plaisir d'être aujourd'hui parmi vous avec pas mal des amis que j'ai depuis des années ici au Maroc. notamment mes collègues de l'IRSN, à la tête M. Samir Rachidi. Et c'est un honneur pour l'Espagne d'être ici représentée. Malheureusement, l'ambassadeur espagnol n'a pas pu se rendre finalement à cause du corona, mais il m'a dit de vous envoyer ses vœux les plus chaleureux. Par la suite, je change à l'anglais. Morocco and Spain share common challenges with regard to energy sovereignty and sustainable development. And I am also convinced that we also share great common opportunities to face these challenges through the development of renewable energies and green hydrogen projects. Indeed, this strategy is aligned with the Sustainable Development Goals and also with the climate commitments adopted in the Paris Agreement to deal with the effects of climate change. In addition, Spain, as a member state of the European Union, promotes the European Green Deal, a set of political initiatives whose main objective is to make Europe climate neutral by 2050. Therefore, to achieve this compromise, Spain expects to have in 2030 42% of renewable energies in the mix of final energy consumption and 74% of renewable energies in the mix of electricity production. This is why that the Spanish government considers green hydrogen as one of its priorities, with the goal of achieving 4 gigawatts of hydrogen production entirely from renewable sources in Spain by 2030, which represents, by the way, 10% of the global commitment of the European Commission for that date. That would allow 25% of the hydrogen produced in Spain not to generate CO2 emissions. Consequently, Spain is a fundamental pillar of the European green hydrogen strategy. Given these common challenges and the public and private investment in this sector, Spain has become a world power in the field of renewable energies. We have the largest solar resource in Europe and also stands out for its wide resource. The country has a powerful industrial value chain in PV technology. In fact, we produce 60% of these components, and in wind energy. In this case, more than 90% of the equipment is built in Spain, as much as we are the flagship of the CSP technology. In addition, according to the results of the European R&D program Horizon 2020, Spain was the first country in project leadership, second in number of participants, and fourth in number of returns. Given this basis, Spain has been a key partner of Morocco in the development of renewable energies in the country. In addition to the Spanish expertise that has worked in the PV plants of Nur, Ouarzazate, Middle, and other locations, in the development of wind farms in Essaouira, Tanger, and Tetuan, Spain is a key player in the Moroccan energy and electricity market, particularly in the import of energy, raw materials, electricity, and gas connectivity. Moreover, we have a bilateral agreement with the Ministry of Energy Transition and Sustainable Development of the Kingdom of Morocco to encourage bilateral cooperation in research and development in these technologies. In fact, IRESEN and CTI, Spanish Innovation Agency, signed a bilateral agreement in 2018 for the joint financing of R&D projects in, among others, Power-to-X technologies, thanks to the launch of annual bilateral R&D calls. In fact, later on, we will have the opportunity of listening to Enagas representative that has a project in cooperation with Moroccan partners in this technology under this bilateral R&D call. In order to support Spanish efforts in the subject that bring us together today, the Kingdom of Spain approved in 2022 a very ambitious plan, the Strategic Project for Economic Recovery and Transformation, PERTE in Spanish, of renewable energies, renewable hydrogen, and storage to develop technologies, knowledge, industrial capabilities, and new business models that strengthen the country's leadership position in clean energy. These instruments will mobilize a total investment of more than 16,300 million euros to build an energy transition designed and made in Spain, maximizing economic, industrial, employment, innovation, and involvement opportunities for citizens and SMEs. It will allow the creation of more than 280,000 jobs. Moving from strategies to facts, this is one of the things that I would like to highlight today. Spain today has centers of excellence in Power-to-X, such as the National Hydrogen Center, CSIC. We will have several presentations in this summit from this research institute, or CUDEM, or ecosystems such as the Spanish Technology Platform for Hydrogen and Fuel Cells, or the Spanish Technology Platform for CO2. In addition, Spain already has real facilities to answer the question of this speech, how to approach these technologies to the market. In fact, His Majesty King Felipe VI inaugurated in May 2022 the largest green hydrogen plant from renewable sources in Europe, which was built by Iberdrola in Puerto Llano at the fertilizers company Fertiberia for the production of green ammonia. With an investment of 150 million euros on a surface of 7 hectares in its first phase, this plant has a production capacity of 3,000 tons of entirely green hydrogen per year. This is one of the examples of the real installations that Spain is setting up, such as the Power of Green Hydrogen Mallorca plant, led by Enagás and Acciona, that started its production in 2021, or the first green hydrogen plant certified for public use in Spain, located in the port of Barcelona and devoted to sustainable mobility. All these elements give Spain a competitive advantage in the emerging development of renewable hydrogen, which will allow it to become an international technological pole. As a result, Spain is a key player in the global development of Power-to-X sector. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Merci, Monsieur José Manuel Durán Cuevas. C'était la dernière intervention. Je vous remercie infiniment, Madame, Messieurs, pour vos différents échanges et speeches qui nous ont permis de découvrir à la fois les ambitions de vos différents États respectifs, les enjeux en termes de coopération et les défis sur le plan économique du développement de l'hydrogène vert. Merci infiniment d'avoir été parmi nous. On va vous faire une petite photo souvenir, donc je vous invite à vous avancer sur scène. Please, just stand up here on the stage for the picture. Et pendant ce temps, je vais appeler sur scène pour la signature d'une nouvelle convention Monsieur Samir Rachidi, directeur général de l'IRESEN, et Monsieur Jesper Nerlov, Chief Technology Officer à Topsoe. C'est l'entreprise danoise dont on a déjà beaucoup entendu parler. Et si son Excellence, Monsieur Jesper Kammersgaard, l'ambassadeur du Danemark, est toujours parmi nous, je l'invite également à se joindre à cette cérémonie pour immortaliser l'événement, cette convention donc qui est signée entre l'IRESEN et Topsoe pour la mise en place d'une coopération dans le domaine de la recherche appliquée et de l'innovation dans la filière Power-to-X. Voilà pour la signature de cette convention en présence de son Excellence, Monsieur l'ambassadeur Jesper Kammersgaard. Convention signée par Dr Samir Rachidi et Monsieur Jesper Nerlov. Voilà, c'est fait. Bravo, messieurs. Sous vos applaudissements, mesdames, messieurs, parce que ce n'est pas rien. Et on se rend compte de l'enjeu de la coopération dans ce domaine. Je vous invite à faire une petite pause, mais vraiment très courte, de 10 minutes chrono, et on reprend immédiatement avec la suite des échanges autour de l'hydrogène vert. Merci, à tout de suite.